What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake KBO Daily Fantasy Sports Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed above, or you can find directly at WiseTake.com. We are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. And right now, everything at WiseTake.com is free. So make sure you're taking advantage. I'm covering the KBO myself. I think we've had a pretty good run, right? So far, it's been a pretty good season, I think. KBO season. And we've got a pretty interesting slate today. So I'm kind of excited to get into it. We've got NASCAR that our boy Tommy Shake and Bake's been busting his ass trying to cover. I think the race just got postponed until tomorrow. So looks like hopefully everybody's gonna have to sweat some NASCAR tomorrow. So hopefully everybody's piling into some KBO action. And I do plan on covering the League of Legends slates once we have bigger samples. I don't like the two-game stuff, but we get some bigger samples, and I will have projections, cheat sheets, all that good stuff at WiseTake.com. So take advantage while it's free. Not sure exactly when we put it down. It's not going to be free forever, even if, NBA and all this stuff don't come back. I have to make a living, but I got to keep the doors open, so to speak. But in the meantime, it's free. We're just hanging out with you guys and trying to grind it out. And regardless, if you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you for finding us. Make sure you subscribe, because everything on this YouTube channel is always free. So the streams we do are always going to be free. If we're covering KBO and we're doing KBOI streams, they will be free on the YouTube channel and Twitch channels. So make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel. It's the best way to get our free stuff. And also, it's fun, man. We're hanging out with y'all. I love interacting with the chat. I try to get you guys involved just because, man, rather than grab somebody else to do a show with, I'd rather just interact with you guys who are sitting here trying to grind it out with me when we're in the same grind, trying to take that same contest, so to speak, or at least trying to win contest, so to speak. So playing the same game. So I appreciate those of you who have been hanging out with us and continuing to come in here every single day. It's a grind. I'm grinding. You guys are grinding, and it's good to see, even in uncertain times, if you will. It's good to see people, have something to focus on, find a way to grind, not using anything as an excuse. We got to find ways to make some money. So let's do it. By the way, if you haven't already hit that like button, please do. I noticed a bunch of you already hit it before I even got in here, which was awesome. I always really appreciate when you guys get a chance to do that. But either way, man, you guys have been great with the likes. I'm not trying to say you guys haven't been. You guys have been busting your ass. I appreciate it. A lot of you guys have been advocates in the YouTube chat to do it. So no complaints here. I appreciate y'all. Just going to ask once again that you hit it for this one. Really helps us out. All right. So as usual, we're going to start with Kia, just because in this series, I just go off the KBO stats, mykbostats.com. I just go off their schedule. This is easy. Gives me a starting point. Right, we got the little drop down action on the sheet, so I can kind of flip through any game. But so for this series, Kia's at the top every time. So that's why we start with Kia. We've got Hyun Jung Yang going up against Hyung Jun So of the KT Wiz. So we know about these teams. Kia's offense kind of middle of the road. Some guys underperforming, some guys overperforming, but it's kind of middle of the road. Not the worst, not the best. The KT Wiz offense is one of the better ones out there. They got Mel Rojas, but they are a little banged up. They've still been managing to pull out wins, but they are a little banged up. Get missing like Kang, who's one of their young guys, who's just awesome, and started off the season red hot. He's out on the 10-day IL, 11-day IL, whatever it is. So, and there's a couple other pieces, I just can't think of their names, who I think we're missing here. So they're a little beaten up. It's kind of important because Hyun Jung Yang on this slate, I think the pitching overall is better on this slate, as in there are more pitchers to like on this slate, but not by much. There is not a lot of pitchers I like, and there's some pitchers that we're just taking complete guesses on that we'll get to, because they're either making their first start ever in the KBO, or we haven't seen them in 3 years, or we've seen a tiny little sample of them this year out of the bullpen. So you'll kind of see that there's three dudes that kind of, in my opinion, stand out above the rest, right? And one of them is Hyun Jung Yang. I know this year the numbers aren't all that impressive, but we'll take a little bit of a deeper look into him real quick. So last season, Hyun Jung Yang was one of the best pitchers in the game from a fantasy perspective, at least. There's a lot of guys that we see with really good FIPs and whips and all this stuff, home run rates, but not a lot of them have a K rate that's above 20%. And so it's not quite as high as guys like Koo, who's just awesome. But it's pretty good. So a 2.32 FIP, a 1.072 whip, a 22.3% K rate, 0.82% home run percentage. So he was solid last year. We look at this year, it's been a little bit more shaky, right? A 4.29 FIP is a little concerning. Maybe he's been a little bit lucky thus far. A 1.143 whip is still pretty good. 19% K rate is still good in this league. I can live with that, especially on a slate where, like, if I'm on a slate with him and Koo and Flex and these other guys who've been a little more consistent, then maybe I lean towards them a little bit more. But 19% I'm still cool with. The 3.57% home run rate's a little scary also. He's been giving up more home runs. Now we can take a look and see who he's played. So he played Kiwoom in the first start, and they kind of tagged him up. He only went 3 innings through 73 pitches, 1 strikeout, 4 earned runs, 4 hits, 2 walks. So they kind of tagged him up. The next game was against Samsung. Only had 3 Ks in 6 innings, unlike him. 2 earned runs, 4 hits, only threw 84 pitches, put up like a 16, which, don't get me wrong, if he puts up a 16 at this price on this slate, that may be good enough. Against Doosan, a very tough opponent, he had a real good game. 7 Ks through 6 innings, and they're very tough to strike out. 2 walks, 2 earned runs, 6 hits. Then against SK, who's been one of the weaker teams in the league so far to start the season, 5 Ks, 4 hits, 6 innings. So he looks like he's kind of mellowing out after the start of the season. His pitch count's going up, right? 97, 95. So, I mean, he's the guy that I think we're leaning on. We'll talk about him and Warwick, who are the 2 guys that I guess you want to call them kind of floor plays, if you will. They have the ceilings too, but I think the floor plays, as in the guys you might feel more comfortable with. But I mean, Yang again is the one that has the strikeout lead significantly, and I'm always in fantasy where you get points directly for strikeouts. I'm always going to side more towards the guy that I think will get more strikeouts. The catch, of course, comes back to the matchup issue, and that the Wiz is a tough opponent. And even this particular lineup, I know it's still early to kind of really judge, but this projected lineup we have, and again, all these lineups are projected. The official lineups don't come out until about an hour before the game starts, so I usually wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I make updates. I take all the lineups, put them in our projections, and our projections change. If they're not in the lineup, they get a 0. If they're in the lineup, they get a projection, and that also updates on the projections and the cheat sheet, which is all free at WiseTake.com right now. So, unfortunately, you could build teams tonight and do your thing, but if you really want to be serious about it, I mean, you don't have to. You can just wing it. If you got money to blow, you can just kind of wing it and just hope you get guys right. I put in the projected lineup, so it's not like I put in some random-ass lineup. I look at the lefty-righty, and I look at, what the projected lineup is for that hand. So I try to get it as close as I can, but there's almost always change. There'll be like maybe 1 or 2 teams out of the 10 that don't have any kind of change. Full disclosure. So take that however you will. But hopefully you guys are waking up doing the grind. I know a couple of you hit me up once in a while on Twitter and will tell me that, oh man, I overslept. And once in a while it's going to happen. That's part of the grind too, unfortunately. But stick with it. Anyway, so this projected lineup we have for the KT Wiz, and Yang is a lefty, by the way, only has a 16% K rate. So that kind of sucks because his Ks were down to start the season. But again, I think they're continuing sort of up. They're a little beat up. The samples are small. We don't want to overreact. Like Sungwoo Zhang has an 8% K rate right now, which is lowering this number pretty significantly. Last year he was up to 20. Even Young Ho Jo, who last year wasn't a big strikeout guy, with only 13% strikeout rate, but 4.4 is also extremely low. So maybe these numbers have some room. You got guys like Jung Dae Bae, who was about 27 last year. So maybe it's a little early to judge their 2020 numbers. So, regardless, I'm going to end up leading my hat on him. I would think he's going to be one of, if not the most popular pitcher, either him or Kelly, I think, maybe. Will be the most popular pitchers on the slate, I would think. But, yeah, I mean, I'll be pitching him. I'm not going to take too many chances with leverage. I'm not doing as many teams. I'm still doing a lot, probably like 175, so I'm going to be a little heavier on what I do like. And my pitching pool right now is really small, especially for guys that I want significant exposure to. And Hyung Jung Yang is one of those guys on the list that I plan on doing it. As far as Hyung Jung So, got to talk about him now. We will look at his 2019. So, 6.48 ERA, but a 3.72 FIP, 1.56 WHIP, 7.89% K rate. Didn't give a lot of home runs. Got a little unlucky, which is why we have an elevated ERA. Okay, so I think he's a rookie. This is all this season. So when I do that, that typically is because the person didn't have a 2019. I mean, 7% K rates I just can't do. So I'm not really in on the pitching side of this. I think I do think we can look at the Kia offense. They're not like super exciting, but I think we can look at the Kia offense. Again, if you look at last year, they did have some guys that showed some decent ISOs. Obviously, the home run numbers were small in general because we didn't get that big of a sample on some of these guys. But Preston Tucker has a 310 ISO currently right now. Jiwan Na, 233 ISO currently, 414 WOBA. So there's some guys with some upside. They're not my favorite offense, but they're certainly in play, I think. Against the guy with a 7%, you got to think there's going to be a lot of balls put into play. That's what you got to expect. Balls in play, if that's your thing. That's your thing. Come on. Let's get it. Oh man, yeah, I just popped in here. Yeah, man. Oh man. Yeah, I see you guys. I set my stuff at 10 p.m. Sleep through the night. Wake up in green. Michael Ray Rojas. All right, man. Get it, man. Hey. If you can make it happen, Captain, do it. You know, if you're able to guess the guys who were in the lineups the night before, and that's not something you're concerned about, nothing's really going to change too much other than that, and then maybe weather, which we don't have yet. So in the breakdown article that I write, it's not up yet. The projections, the cheat sheet breakdown will be out after the show. They're not up yet. But in the breakdown, once I get a weather report, I try to put a link in the breakdown. I'll update it and put a link in. Right now, I haven't heard anything, but there's a couple people I follow for the weather that I'll be tracking into. But anyway, LG Twins and the Hanwha Eagles. We've got another chalk pitcher, Casey Kelly, going for the LG Twins against Hanwha. Against Warwick, Southpole. I mean, I think both of these guys are going to be pretty popular, along with Yang. I think maybe Yang first or maybe Kelly first, but these three guys I think will be the most popular pitchers on the slate, no doubt. And for good reason, we'll start with Kelly. Start with him. Man, I keep forgetting to switch the sheets, man. I'm exhausted. All right, so 2019 was really solid for him in this league. Similar to like Jay-Hawk Lee and some of these guys that we paid $9K for in the KBO. Kelly's got very similar numbers to them. A low FIP of 3.16, a low whip 1.137, a 16.87% K rate, so it's not great. In this league, it's not bad. It's probably around the average or something. Home runs are down 0.94%. So like the difference is, again, I was talking about how we just paid like for Jay-Hawk Lee yesterday like 9 something because the slate was so ugly. This guy's 7,400 and he's playing one of the worst offenses in the league right now. I think that Hanwha makes for an interesting leverage stack. If I know some people don't like that word, but whatever you want to call it, there will be a lot of people playing Casey Kelly tomorrow. And Hanwha's been literally one of the weakest offenses in the game. Even yesterday, while they did eventually put up some runs, the opposing pitcher still walked away with, I think, 18, 19 DraftKings points against them once they got the win. Let's look at 2020. 2020 hasn't been so good for him, but if we look at his stats, looks like he's been a little unlucky, right? A 5.79 ERA, a 2.31 FIP, 1.5 WHIP. The K's around the same. Still not giving up home runs, so it looks like the ball just kind of didn't bounce his way a few times, and that's affected him. So we know he's due for some progression, if you will, positive regression, whatever you want to call it. So I'm willing to invest in Casey Kelly against Hanwha. I think he's one of the better options on the slate. I know it's chalky and it's uncomfortable, but if you're not looking at pitching him, it gets kind of bleak. You can take shots on Samson, who we'll talk about in a second. We know nothing about him in the KBO. And he's limited to 50 pitches. We'll talk about that. But Young Chan Lee is terrible. We'll get to that. We talked about Yang, who's an option. We'll talk about Warwick next. It's pretty ugly. You know, you got some of these guys that you can take shots on that we'll get into, like I said. But we'll get into them as we go. I don't want to jump too far ahead. So yeah, I'm going to be really heavy on Kelly. I know it's chalky, it's boring, it's unexciting. But I'm trying to win. I'm not trying to be cute. with that said, let's talk about Warwick a little bit. One other thing about Casey Kelly, this projected lineup for Hanwha, 20% carry, one of the higher ones you'll see. So that should help give him a little bit of a boost. And of course, we always talk about Hanwha and the ISOs for this team. And even for 2019, you got two guys above 100. Right now they got 3 with some small samples, holla. But this C1 No guy is a strikeout machine. It's glorious. Glorious. 37% strikeout rate last year, up to 43 this year. Glorious. So I'll be happy on Kelly. As far as Warwick goes, man, I hate taking guys that have low strikeout rates, but I'm getting used to it in this league. In the MLB, I'm not doing that shit no more. But in this league, you have to adapt. And this is the situation that we find ourselves in. So looking at Warwick, 3.2 FIP last year, 1.274 whip, 16% K rate. He's not that different from Kelly, right? Look at Casey Kelly's numbers. Look at his numbers. Pretty much the same in 2019. Very, very similar. Obviously, Kelly is significantly cheaper, which is why he's a little more appealing, especially because he's going to be easier to pair with Yang for most people. Looking at Warwick 2020, his FIP is 3.35. Casey Kelly's FIP is actually lower at 2.31. His whip's been awesome, but Kelly's whip's, again, you can kind of tell he's been unlucky based off the ERA elevation. That's a massive difference of ERA and FIP. That's going to affect his whip. Strikeouts, Casey Kelly's getting more Ks. And neither of them are really home run problems, but I'm just saying they're like the same. It's like the same situation, but one is significantly cheaper. So I have Kelly above Warwick. But those 3 pitchers, Warwick, Casey Kelly, and Zhang, I'll have the most of, and I'll rank them Yang and Kelly as the 1-2, 1A, whatever, the optimal combo, and Warwick as like the guy that I'll rotate in and out with them. But kind of simple, right? I don't want to, right? Warwick, the LG team only has a 16% K rate. Not too concerned about that because that's kind of what Warwick is, and he just doesn't seem to give up a ton of power, and that's really how LG can get you. I mean, they went nuts, man. They went fucking nuts. So I have no problems if you want to say, nah, I think Warwick's bubble is going to burst a little bit here and ride with these guys because you want to play the hot hand. I mean, Ramos, we could one off him all day. That's nothing, you know. That's nothing. We could one off Ramos all day. I got no problems with that one. But I got to look and see why his numbers ain't showing up all of a sudden. I guess I could check that after the show, but you guys know me by now, man. This shit bothers me when I see that. I don't know why. Huh. Oh, because Ramos. Okay, okay. I'll address that some other time. Anyway, my bad, bro. I'm holding up the show. So I like the pitching in this one. By the way, by far the lowest total on the slate. We'll go on to the next game. We've got the SK Wyverns going up against the Doosan Bears. Let me pop in the chat real quick, man. What are y'all talking about, man? What are y'all talking about? Michael Ray Rojas says, I actually enjoy the smaller KBO slates compared to the MLB. You know, I've been saying that too, Mike. I've been saying that a couple times about these smaller slates on regular, like, baseball slates. A lot of time we get small slates sometimes, but for the most part, you're dealing with, like, there's a lot of teams, man. You're dealing with a lot of games, and there's already a lot of variance in the sport. So the variance just gets kind of wild the more, names in there. You just need more teams to really feel like you're getting the exposures you need. Having 5-game slates is kind of refreshing for baseball. It makes it a little bit of it's the same sport, but it makes it a little bit of a different sport. And it'd be the same thing with any sport, League of Legends and all that. Like, there is kind of a sweet spot in slates and 5 games. I've always found NBA, any sport to me, 5 to like 8 games is like kind of a sweet spot. Even 5 to 7. But I agree with you on that, man. Elliot, same player pool every day too. Yeah, it's definitely easier to keep up. Names are confusing, absolutely. When you got so many people with the same name, absolutely. Marcus F, man of the nation, yes sir. Elliot says, does Roth put out weather report every night? Normally, I know he just had a baby, Him and his wife just had their first child. I think it's his first child. Beautiful baby girl. So I'm sure that, if he's not doing it, I know he didn't do it yesterday. It's got something to do with his time, right? Like it's supposed to be some downtime. He's trying to be a hustler and keep busy during the break, but normally he does. Like he is super reliable, and regular sports you'll see. But in this moment, I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him since we've done the interview. But most nights he does. Dwayne James, what's up, big dog? Appreciate you as always. Man, the win is coming. I've been saying that for the last 6 months, though. Man, you can't never stop saying it. You have to believe it. Right? You do. You have to believe it. You have to believe it's happening. And it'll happen, my man. Just believe it. Stay Inspired says, right now, no rain in forecast for any games. I haven't seen anything. Stay inspired. If that's something that you found, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that in the chat. Hopefully that maintains. I'll be still looking for weather just in case. And like I said, if I see anything, I will put it in my article whenever I do find it. Stay inspired. Appreciate it. B Jack 281 says, took down first in the Kundo single $3. I'm back with WiseTake. Loving it, man. Loving it. Welcome back, man. All right, I'm going to keep things rolling. We'll go on to the next game. Like I said, the Wyverns. So we got Jeon-Wook Lee. So our first pitcher where we don't really have a big sample. And I'll explain you something. Then we got Doosan and Young-Chan Lee. This is a very interesting situation. We also have a massive total, if you notice. Doosan projected for 6.5. SK for 4.5. So this is one of the higher totals on the game, probably the highest, I think. I don't know. The Dinos might have the highest, I think. Maybe. But this is probably the second highest, something like that. So we'll start with Jeon-Wook Lee. So this is a unique situation. He has not pitched much at all. This year, matter of fact, I didn't want to put his stats into our system because there's such small samples everywhere you look that it would just mess up all the other projections. Or it would mess up some of the averages we have. So the league averages, etc. So I just decided to show you guys. I don't know what you can see here. This is him. This is mykbostats.com. So in 2020, he's had 2 games. They were both out of the bullpen. They were both against LG. They were a day apart. It was this one and then the other. Now, so the first appearance, it was May 12th. He pitched 1 inning. He gave up 0 hits, 0 earned, 0 walks, 2 strikeouts against LG in 12 pitches. The next day, on the 13th, he went 2 1/3, 39 pitches. So off top, he's not stretched out. That's the first thing we see. We don't think he is, unless he was in spring training and we don't know about, or he was in the minors getting stretched out. We don't think he's stretched out. So that's number one you got to keep in your head. Is he's probably going to have somewhat of a pitch limit, right? And we don't have no idea what that is. In that 2 innings and a third against LG, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 hit, no earned. So he struck out 3 in 2 1/3. And LG's not, LG can strike out. We've seen him do it. But if you look at their numbers, they're not exactly like a strikeout happy team. I'd say they're somewhere around neutral to maybe below average in strikeouts. So I don't really know what to think of this kid. In 2016, he had 1 game out of the bullpen, gave up 2 earned runs. He was awful. Gave up 2 triples. In 2017, he had 2 games out of the bullpen, gave up 5 earned runs across those 2 games. Didn't look good. He comes up 3 years later. We just barely see him. He looked good. Now he's playing Doosan, one of the best teams in the game. That we do have stats for. Let me see. As you can see, Doosan, this projected lineup has a 13.84% K rate. They strike out the least in the league by far. What do you want to do? I think Doosan is obviously in play. Curious to see the ownership because we have a lot of good hitting spots today. That's the one bright spot. It might be there's not a ton of great pitching options, but that typically means there's some good hitting spots, and I think there are. And Doosan, I think, is one of them. However, Jeon-Wook Lee, the simple fact that he's not known, he's 5'7" on DraftKings, so as a punt, if he is capable of those kind of strikeouts, it makes you stop it and just kind of wonder. Think about what if. But again, like I told you guys who my main 3 pitchers were already. We already covered that. These other guys, it's just more like maybe work in multi-entries and take shots on. Because at the end of the day, even if he gave up 3 runs, if he was able to strike out 5 or 6 and go 3 innings, 4 innings, was he going to give you a 9-10? It's not terrible if the other pitchers suck ass. If it allows you to get bats. Now, the thing is, in KBO, I haven't really found the need to punt too much with pitching because there's so many pricing inefficiencies everywhere else. So that's the reason I'm not like crazy about it. But in MLB, I would be looking at him hard to sell because the pricing is typically more tight. But this ain't MLB. This is KBO. Young Chan Lee. This is a guy that we have some samples on. Yes, we do. We will go to 2019, a 4.07 FIP, mediocre at best, 1.436 whip, 15.67% K rate, 2.3% home run rate, which is above league average last year. So far this year, he's been god-awful. 10.34 ERA supported by a 6.32 whip. So, yeah, maybe it shouldn't be 10, but still 6 sucks too. 1.851 whip, a 12% K rate, and a 5.33% home run rate. I do think that SK is going to be low owned because they've been fucking awful. And they've been really bad. They've been really, really bad. We can look at how bad. They've had injuries also, and aside from injuries, they started off so bad they sent a few guys down and called up some of these young guys, and these young guys are striking out like a motherfucker. Guys like Young and Hungoo Lee, who didn't play last year, massive K rate so far. So he is going to have a good strikeout matchup, Young Chan Lee. Is it possible that he has a game where he kind of corrects and goes towards where he did last year? It's possible, but right now this looks awful. I want nothing to do with Young Chan Lee, even against an SK team that's terrible. In fact, I do think I want at least a little bit of SK. They're terrible. They're fucking terrible. They're not my favorite offense. But I want some exposure because I think that this pitcher's really bad. I really do. I think this pitcher's bad. So I do want some exposure. If you wanna just play matchup, I don't hate. If you want to go Young Chan Lee, I wouldn't like. The only thing, are you aware that he's terrible this year? Yes. What's your reasoning? Because SK sucks. I have no argument. They do. They've been really fucking bad. Really bad. I mean, Jiang Choi hit 29 homers last year. He's fucking terrible this year so far. So at some point, maybe they'll turn it around. But either way, I just think this pitcher's not good. And I like to attack pitchers who aren't good. So Doosan, obviously, you know what to do with Doosan. Get yourself some exposure because they'll probably be owned. They just always are. Just Jose Fernandez, he's like 40% every day, I feel like. But he's doing freakish things. Freakish things. Samsung Lions and the Lotte Giants. A whole lot of Giants. A whole lot of suck last night. Yoon Dong Hyo. We'll talk about him in a second. Against Adrian Sampson. So we have 2 guys we have no stats for. Wonderful. It just makes everything all the more exciting. So I got nothing to show you over there. So what I'm going to do is nothing. Yoon Dong Hyo, I know nothing about. Flat out know nothing about him. All I know is he's never played in the KBO before. It's his first start. He's a kid. He's a rookie. First start. That's all I know. The Lotte Giants, one of the weaker offenses in the game. They started off pretty hot, but they're starting to kind of come back down to reality. However, Samsung's bullpen is terrible. This game does have, I think it's another one with a high total. Well, you could see it is, right? Somewhere around 10 at least. So it's kind of an interesting situation. 5,200 on DraftKings for Hyo. So if you did want to punt, the problem is we know nothing about him. The other guy, at least we saw a couple innings. This guy we know nothing about. And when I tried to look up videos of him, it was all in Korean. I had nothing. So, and I didn't even know if it was the right player because the name wasn't written in Korean as well. You try Googling that shit, shit. Anyway, so you're really perplexed here. I'm sticking more so. Maybe I have a little bit, but I'm sticking with the main 3 pitchers, and that's why I don't want to fuck with the unknown. I may go back to the Lotte Giants a little bit just because I think that if it gets ugly for this rookie, it'll turn into a bullpen game. And this bullpen's not good. They got shut down by 1 pitcher yesterday. That pitcher went the distance, and he's a terrible pitcher. Hit his next start, he's got to get rocked. It's got to happen. He's got to have aggression coming his way. We'll talk about that next time we see him. But anyway, so I'm cool with going back to the Lotte Giants. At the same time, outside of those 3 main pitchers we talked about, the only ones I'm willing to take shots on are the cheap ones, really cheap ones, because they are more likely to do more for me. With that said, I do think I'll have a lot of giant stacks. Maybe Dixon Machado will finally do something for me. So far, I've been in situations with Machado where I needed him to do nothing because I was in a contest where I was sweating, first place, and he hit like a fucking RBI double. And every other situation I've had him, and all I need him to do is a little something, something, and he hasn't done shit. So that's just the kind of guy Dixon Machado is for me. But he's got stolen base upside. He's already got 2 stolen bases. He got 4 homers already. All right, so I am gonna have a lot of giant stacks. They screwed me, but I'm gonna go back a little bit to him. I will. Not in my top stack, no, but they'll be in there. As far as Adrian Sampson goes, I think Adrian Sampson might be good in this league. Only because we are seeing all kinds of mediocre or even sorry pitchers like have success in this league. Maybe he doesn't have success every single start and he's not dominant like Odorizma Despaigne, but maybe he's like a Straley where like every other start is good. Either way, he's got a phenomenal matchup against Samsung. The problem, of course, is he's limited to 50 pitches and he's 8K. If he was cheap, I'd take a shot, but he's not. So I don't think I want to pay 8K for him. I think his ownership will be low for the people that don't know the pitch count, but maybe there's a bunch of people that don't know. Maybe there's people playing who don't look it up and don't have an idea, but I doubt it. Who would be putting all their money behind that shit without looking? But yeah, I just can't. I mean, at least we get to kind of wait and see how he does in his first start. The matchup don't get too much better than this, even though Samsung has actually been kind of hot. They've now had, I think, 2 out of the last 3 or 4 slates where they've actually put up double-digit runs. And that's the other question. What happens when Adrian Sampson hits his 50 pitches and has to come out? Then what? Right? But a lot of Giants I'll have some exposure to. Last game, we got the, in my opinion, for offense, the game of the day. The Kiwoom Heroes and the NC Dinos. Dingo Babies. Daehyun Jung. Another player that we ain't showing stats for 2020. We got 2019 stats, though. Or no, I'm sorry. I think they're 2017 stats. Yeah, this would be fun. And then we got young Gayu Kim, who we don't have a ton of stuff for, but anyway. So I'll show you guys what we got. So for Daehyun Jung. Let me pull him up real quick. Here. This is his first 2020 appearance. So he has not pitched in the KBO since 2017. Not really sure what his deal is, if it was an injury there. Not really sure if he was just sent down to the minors. I can tell you that what you see, these 2017 numbers you see here in front of you. That year he appeared in 17 games and he started in 10 of them. So it's not the largest sample, but it's not tiny either. And he was fucking terrible. I mean, he was awful. A 7.06 ERA and a 6.01 FIP, a 1.72 whip, only an 8% K rate, and a 4.25% home run. I don't know what to think. Maybe he's improved in 2018 and in 2019, or I don't know what the deal is. But you're gone for 2 years, and you just come back, and you're getting thrown out there against one of the best offenses in the game. It just seems like a very rough situation. He's 4,500 for those that want to take a shot. NC Dino is a very good offense, but they do strike out a little higher than you'd expect, at least this year. So if you want to get down and dirty, be my guest. But the Dinos are probably my favorite stack on the slate. This game in general is probably my favorite game for offense. So you kind of see, again, and you go to 2016, he was with the KT Wiz, 22 starts. 7.29 ERA, 1.74 whip. He was 4-10. So he just seems like a guy that's not really going to strike a lot of people out. Is prone to giving up home runs. I mean, if we had contact data on this guy, it would probably be exciting. Probably hear some wood popping if we had some hard contact data on this guy. So yeah, I want to attack him. He is a lefty, for what it's worth. He is a lefty. Going to the other side of this game, we've got, where is he? Young Gayu Kim. Last year, 4.76 FIP. Shitty. Whip, 1.704. Shitty. Strikeout rate, under 15%, shitty. Home run rate, 2.28%, above the league average. So far this year, a 3.27 ERA. His averages look good. However, he's got a 5.01 FIP, so I'm not convinced he's any better than he was last year. His whip is down because it looks like he's been a little lucky. Right, again, a big difference in his ERA and his FIP. A 21% K rate, I'm sure, has bailed him out of certain situations. I guess it wouldn't hurt to check and see who he's doing the shit against. Right? Young guy, you can. Remembering these names is killing me. So his first game was against LG. 5 innings, 3 earned runs, 4 Ks. Went for 8. They lost that game 8-10. LG has scored 10 runs that day. The next game was against SK, who's just been the drizzling shits. 5 strikeouts, 4 hits, 1 earned run. Went for 19. That was a really good game. He played Hanwha the next game, who has been probably the next worst offense after SK. 3 strikeouts, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 6 hits. Only went for 7. Hanwha scored 5 runs, which for them is high. So I like the Kiwoom heroes as well. And another interesting note, we don't have a ton of the data available for me to dig into too hard. But from what I understand, the Dinos bullpen is like a concern for them. That's just my understanding. Like the KBO beat reporters, I guess, over there seem to think that's like their big prediction thing is, okay, yeah, they're number 1 right now, but is their bullpen going to hold up? So I like Kiwoom, man. Kiwoom is a good offense. They haven't started off as obviously strong as some of the other teams out there, but I'm going to show you. I mean, this guy Ha-Seong Kim is a beast, man. In 2019, he had a 387 WOBA, a 183 ISO, 19 homers, 33 stolen bases. And so far in 2020, he's got a 385 WOBA, a 231 ISO. He's hit 3 home runs, so he's hitting home runs slightly more, almost 1% more often. And he's got 2 stolen bases already. Doesn't strike out. 12% last year, 12% this year. This dude is solid, man. 6K is expensive, I know, but the guy's got upside. And this is a big ass total. We're talking about an 11 run total or some shit like that. 10.5. I think it was 11 actually. Jung Ho Lee has been actually playing really well. In the power department, had 6 homers last year for a 120 ISO. Already has 4 homers so far this year, going from a 0.95% home run rate to a 5.13, massive. 6% K rate so far. Byung-Ho Park has some room for improvement if you want to compare him to last season. Last season, an outstanding year. 416 WOBA, 280 ISO, 33 dingers, 6.2% home run rate. So far this year, it's not bad. 322 WOBA is not great, but a 206 ISO is not bad. 4 homers, 5.26% home run rate. To his standards, it's not great. He's striking out a lot more, but you would think he's going to go back to what he was doing unless he's just getting washed, right? We don't have a ton of data on the rest of these guys. It's not great. Tyler Motter's been disappointing. There's no doubt about that. Also, young guy Yu Kim is a lefty. So a lefty that doesn't strike dudes out, I think would be good for a guy like Taylor Motter. I think it would be really good for a guy like Byung-Ho Park. Right? So I think this is actually a really good situation for Kiwoom. I love this game as a game stack for offenses. Not that I think game stacks are really a thing. I just happen to think both offenses are in a phenomenal position. I think both offenses are really good. So I expect a lot of runs in this game. I'm going to have a lot of Dino stacks, Kiwoom stacks. We talked about some of the other offense I'll sprinkle in, but these are my 2 favorite teams, no doubt, for offensive purposes. As far as the Dino goes, about Sung Bum Na. You can get some lefty on lefty action. Maybe he's lower owned. If people realize is lefty on lefty, I'm not sure. Looks like there's one guy I got to change the price on. Quan. We can take a look at this guy, see what's going on. Hee Dong Quan. I'll have to take a look at that. I'll update that before we post the projections. But that's basically the gist of it, man. I do like this slate, man. I like where the offenses are going. I like. Oh man, I'm just. Xandru said he picked hitters against his pitcher. Oh man, that's rough, man. I mean, listen, it's not as when you're building teams by hand, it is hard to kind of keep track of who you're picking. And there are some situations where even in our projections, there's some situations where we might have a pitcher rated as like the second or third best at his tier because that tier might be weak. And But because like we measured off two different stats, right? Like what makes a good pitcher in DFS is different from what makes a good pitcher something to target, right? Some of the best strikeout pitchers have the biggest home run percentages because they go right after the hitters. So, and they throw a lot of strikes. So those are the situations. It's not as crazy, I guess, as you would think. So Doosan, you kind of by default have to have them every day, it seems like. Because they're so popular every day that if you don't, you're just going to get fucked. You got to have a little bit. But the Kiwoom game is my favorite. I'll work in some Lotte Giants. I'll work in somebody. The pitching is tight for me. Real tight. You guys can see. I just don't love it. Maybe the one, or I think, somebody asked about the Lotte Giants pitcher. Adrian Sampson. Okay, the Lotte Giants pitcher. So he was not good at Major League Baseball. That's why he's not there anymore. He had a couple really good moments where people thought he was turning the corner, but he was just not good. And he played in Arlington in his defense. It's a hard place to pitch, man. It gets hot there. It's a really good hitter's park. But no, he was not good. There's a reason that he's not in the MLB. And it's not the COVID shit. It's that nobody wanted him because he was bad. But Odorizmer Despaigne was not that great in the MLB. We're not very good at all. Gagnon, not very good in the MLB. Chris Flexen, not good at all in the MLB. And these guys are all having extreme success in the KBO. So I think he could be good in this league. The 50 pitch limit is going to keep me off of him. But I think he could be good, and I'll keep an eye on him to see how he does, basically. So one of the reasons I like this slate is because my pitching is pretty tight, so my exposures are going to be tight, so I feel like I'm going to have a lot of different combinations of what I actually like. And we're just going to go for it, nation. Elliot says, you can play Ramos against your pitcher. It's okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's the one exception to the rule. I would agree. Elliot makes a really good point. That guy you can play, doesn't matter. He's just going to hit a home run. I mean, his home run rate is over 10% right now. It's just ridiculous. He's going to hit a home run. If there was a bookie take, if you could bet on if Ramos is hitting a home run, by now it's got to be like to a point where it's a big favorite. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is crazy. But anyway, nation, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'm going to finish the article, get the projections posted once I fix this name issue. And then, is it gone? Oh, no, it's not gone. It's in the other game. And then, like I said, everything will be up on the site, WiseTake.com. Hit the like button if you haven't already. I appreciate you guys hanging. I'll be up in the morning to update it, so I'm going to get to bed early so I can wake up and do the dirty because I'm only sleeping about 3-4 hours a night. So one of these nights is going to catch up. So I'm going to go to bed early because I don't want to oversleep. I'm going to make sure I get you guys the shit that y'all need, the lineups, all that good shit. Make sure you check it out at WiseTake.com. Hit me up on Twitter at CK_3. Once the projections and the cheat sheets are updated, once the lineups are confirmed, I will tweet from the WiseTake Twitter at Wise_take just to let everybody know, okay, the cheat sheets have guys that are in the lineup. The projections have projections only for guys that are in the lineup, and you're good to go. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.